Hello guys, welcome back to the MMASucka channel. My name is Frazer Krohn. As you can see, I'm on my own this week. Tim will be back possibly next week, but irrespective of whether Tim's back next week, I've got a huge podcast lined up next week ahead of the latest UFC pay-per-view, UFC 289, I believe, Nunes versus Aldana. And of course, we've got Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. But it's been a couple of weeks since we dropped a podcast. We had a week off last week. Tim's away. I had a few bits and bobs going on last week. But we're back. We're back for a slightly shorter podcast this week. Obviously, we didn't have a UFC card to break down from the weekend, but we've got one to preview, and we've got some strange goings on in the sport. Obviously, we tend to drop the podcast on a Monday or a Tuesday, but I wanted to watch the first episode of the TUF season with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler and give you a bit of a review on it. So I'll jump into that straight away. We've also got another Conor McGregor story being called out by a YouTuber that he called the YouTuber. It's a big old mess, so I'll go into that. And then, of course, we'll break down this week's fight night. Kai Kara France versus Amir Albazi. Phenomenal fight. Just before I touch on it in any great detail. Brilliant fight. So TUF obviously aired for the first time this week. We gave you the news back, pretty soon after it was officially announced. We dropped a big story. I'll drop that in the link below for you guys. And it features bantamweights and lightweights. We knew that, and it was a mixture of veterans and sort of newcomers, as it were, people that have been in the UFC that we recognise. Timo Value, Jason Knight is obviously arguably the most recognisable guy in there. Kurt Holbach's in there as well. And he started off, McGregor and Chandler, they meet for the first time. They big handshake and the kind of respect, and then McGregor's, little jibes at Chandler, trying to almost get in his head a little bit, but Chandler wasn't biting on it. They brought in their teams, McGregor with John Kavanagh, Kean Cowley, sorry, Owen Roddy, his striking coach, and another guy, but he's also got his nutritionist. So he's got the whole sort of SBG team. And Michael Chandler brings in plenty of his guys, his striking coaches, his coaches, and including Ryan Bader, of Bellator fame, and of TUF fame, and of former UFC fame. That was interesting. What's also interesting is that they had the first training session, and then they sort of picked their number one guy, number two guy, etc. And they matched them all up on the first episode. So from week one, everybody knows who they're going to fight. They can, get the coaches to do research on them outside, because obviously they're in the TUF house. They don't get to do any. They don't have any internet, no phones, no nothing. But that's not to say that Conor McGregor can't do research on all the opponents that his team's going to be facing. Look at the strengths and weaknesses. I'm sure they have already. I don't believe for a second that Conor's going to do that. But we saw Conor getting quite involved with the training, which was nice to see. And then it kind of, there's a little bit of a sour taste left in my mouth when he didn't turn up to the weigh-ins. I appreciate that he's a businessman, he's got a lot done, but he hasn't got a fight to train for yet, because, Michael Chandler can afford, and it's not like, if he misses this session, or Chandler's going to get so much better in the time. That's not the case at all. And he didn't turn up to the weigh-ins. That's not a good sign for Team McGregor straight off the bat. The fight itself was, well, there's not much to say about the fight itself. It was Roosevelt Roberts got the victory in 9 seconds. That's pretty much all we can say about it. McGregor wanted his guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, wanted his guy to go in and keep the jab in their face, keeps on going on to all of his guys, but hit the nose, break the nose, hit the nose, break the nose, and unfortunately, it was a 9-second knockout for Team Chandler, as it were. So they're 1-0 up in TUF. Roosevelt Roberts progresses on to the next round, and we eagerly anticipate next week's episode. I haven't seen any numbers come out yet about how it's done in comparison to previous series, but I'll hold my hands up. I'm in this industry. I love MMA. I watch MMA every day, various fights and whatnot. I haven't watched many of the last series. Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes didn't interest me. They're not two personalities that I'm too in awe by. this is one that I'll be watching every single episode the day it comes out, the day after it comes out, because I'm fascinated by how these two clash. Talking about Conor McGregor and still considering Conor McGregor, he released a strange sort of barrage of offense at True Geordie. Now, many people will recognize True Geordie from internet fame, YouTube fame. He has a pretty successful podcast where he's had some big guys on there. You know, he's had Michael Bisping on there. He's had Chael Sonnen on his podcast. I think he spoke to Francis Ngannou. So, you know, he's reputable. He's not a journalist. He's a podcaster. He's a YouTuber. He obviously uses Conor McGregor's name for sort of clickbait, as it were, which is, you know, I don't have a problem with that per se, but clearly Conor does. You know, Conor released, or sorry, Ariel Helwani released an interview with Conor McGregor ahead of Katie Taylor's fight with Chantal Cameron a few weeks ago in Ireland, in Dublin, and McGregor, you know, and True Geordie sort of broke the interview down and said that it's clear that McGregor's on drugs. They're pretty wild claims, but you know that this is what clearly he clearly thinks. And McGregor sort of sent a big barrage of assault and insults back at him, which is fine. You know, some of the stuff that he said wasn't quite PC, should we say? But you know, it is what it is with McGregor. You kind of come to expect that. It doesn't make it okay, but it is what it is with McGregor. But then True Geordie released a video last night saying that, you know, you're 5'8", I'm 6'4", I'm 300 pounds, you're 150, and he just went and he called McGregor out for a charity boxing match or in a charity MMA fight. This is internet. This is MMA gone mad. But you know, I just thought I'd touch on that because it is in the sort of in the MMA, world of MMA at the moment is a bit of a talking point, which is crazy. Another talking point, sort of drifting away from the UFC. We've got another failed drug test in the PFL. Rob Wilkinson becomes the 10th PFL fighter this season to fail a drug test. 10 guys have been pulled. It's a really bad look for the PFL. I wrote all about it in an article yesterday, breaking the news. So I'll link that down below. I won't go into it in too much detail, but yeah, Rob Wilkinson out of his fight next week or the week after next due to a failed drug test. Like I said, I'll link the article down below so you can read all about it. But it's disappointing for the PFL. But you know, looking ahead to this weekend, we've got a massive KSW card, but realistically, it's all about the UFC Fight Night inside the Apex. Kai Kara-France versus Amir Albazi at flyweight. Now, the last time we saw Kai Kara-France, he was coming off the back of three straight wins. He knocked out Rodrigo Bontorin, knocked out Cody Garbrandt. He went to a unanimous decision against Askar Askarov. That was an extremely close fight, but he got his hand raised on that occasion, and he fought Brandon Moreno for the interim flyweight title. Really fun fight on reflection, really fun fight. But Brandon Moreno got the victory by liver kick. You know, Brandon Moreno is the best 125 in the world, and there's no shame in losing to Brandon Moreno. He was then scheduled to fight Alex Perez. Interestingly, he's the one that pulled out of that with Alex Perez's notoriety for pulling out of fights. Kai Kara-France pulled out of that one with an injury. But now, you know, now we've got this fight, and it's an exciting fight. Like I say, Kai Kara-France is one of the best in the world, and Amir Albazi is quickly becoming one of the best in the world. 29 years of age, 5 straight wins, undefeated in the UFC with 3 finishes and a decision. You know, Alessandro Costa last time out, Francisco Figueiredo before that, Zumagulov before that, and then Malcolm Gordon in his UFC debut. He's also got a win by keylock in Brave. He lost to Jose Shorty Torres, who, you know, no shame in that at all. That's the only loss on his record. You know, he's 16-1. I think I'm, you know, we know what Kai Kara-France is going to do. He's going to come in there, look to box, look to kickbox, look to be in and out using this quick, rapid movement. But will it be quick and rapid enough for Albazi not to catch him, to counter him, to work a takedown? Who knows? I'm not quite sure how this one's going to go. I think unofficially I'm going to pick Albazi, but with not an awful lot of confidence. But the thing is, the UFC flyweight at the top, that you've obviously got the flyweight champion Brandon Moreno. He's taking on Alexander Pantoja during the International Fight Week. We don't know what Davison Figueiredo is doing. Is he staying at flyweight? Is he going up? We don't know. You got Brandon Royval, you got Mateus Nicolau, you got Alex Perez. Kai Kara-France is ranked number 3. Amir Albazi is ranked number 7. This is a huge fight and I don't think it will, but it could see the next contender sort of crowned, as it were. But without a doubt, don't miss it. Don't blink, because these guys are going to be like, two flies around the octagon, absolutely buzzing around. And it's going to be a fun fight. As is the co-main event, Alex Caceres versus Daniel Pineda. Caceres is, he's had a bit of a career revival in recent times. I think I don't know if he's dropped out. No, he's still in the UFC featherweight rankings. He's ranked number 15. And like I say, he's had a little bit of a career revival. After losing to Kron Gracie back in 2019, in February 2019, he beat Steven Peterson, he beat Chase Hooper, he beat Austin Springer, he beat Kevin Kroom, he beat Sung Woo Choi. He then lost to Sadiq Youssef, but then he bounced back and beat Julian Erosa. That was a really good win back in December. He was scheduled to face Nate Landwehr, but Caceres had to withdraw, and now he's matched with Daniel Pineda. Pineda's not bad. He's 1-1 in his last 3. He obviously lost to Cub Swanson. He had a no contest with Andre Fili, and then he beat Tucker Lutz last time out. I think this is going to be a fairly easy night for Alex Caceres. Pineda's there to be hit. Caceres is an absolutely slick striker, and a striker like we don't often see. He's got that in and out sort of karate style, but he's also got a pretty wicked ground game. I mean, for me, Caceres can get his leg off the floor a lot quicker than most people, and by the time that you see it, it's already wrapped around your jaw. So I'm picking Caceres in that one. We have Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. This is the kind of fight that I want to see Jim Miller and Jared Gordon in. None of these guys are going to be UFC lightweight champion anytime soon or ever. But this is a somewhat of a legend fight. Jim Miller, he will compete at UFC 300, in my opinion. He had 3 back-to-back wins. Eric Gonzalez, Nicholas Motta, and Cowboy. He then dropped his last fight in February to Alexander Hernandez. He was scheduled to face Ludwig Klein next week, but Klein pulled out. Sorry, this week he was scheduled to face Ludwig Klein this week. Klein pulled out, and Jared Gordon's filled in. Jared Gordon obviously coming off the back of that extremely. He's had a difficult few fights. He had the extremely close and controversial loss to Paddy Pimblett, and then the no contest against Bobby Green. The accidental clash of heads. I'm pretty sure that he was out, but you can't knock your opponent out with your head essentially and win the fight. Further down the card, we've got Jamie Mullarkey, who was meant to be facing Guram Kutateladze. Kutateladze's pulled out of that one due to visa issues. That's a shame, but Mullarkey stays on the card. We've got Tim Elliott, obviously coming off the back of a horrible, personal situation with his wife Gina Mazzani and a quote unquote best friend. We've got being in a relationship and sort of behind Tim Elliott's back. Andrei Arlovsky's on the card, still fighting. Andrei Arlovsky is still fighting. Crazy that guy is still going. And this is a card that it is what it is. It's very much an Apex card. It's very much a Fight Night card. Does this card need to happen, or could these fights be maybe spread out onto other cards? That's not my choice, unfortunately. But rest assured the main event is going to deliver. I think we'll see a really good performance by Alex Caceres in the co-main event. It's potentially a coming out party and a changing of the guard somewhat for Amir Albazi. Or can Kai Kara France really prove that he deserves to be in the top 3 of the division? Like I say, I think Alex Caceres is going to put on a show in the co-main event. Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon, a great fight. Jamie Malarkey's never in a boring fight, but then it's at the end of the day, it's full speed ahead, all guns blazing towards UFC 289 in Vancouver, Canada next Saturday. I think it's the 10th. So rest assured that we'll be back on Monday or Tuesday to break down that card, to look at that card, and to really dial in on that card. And of course, we'll review the weekend that was, as it were. So yeah, keep it locked to MMASucka. I'll link all the articles down below that I've been discussing. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. It really helps myself and Tim out and the rest of the channel. We've got an interview with Sergio Pettis up on the site at the moment that you really don't want to miss. So help us help you, and take it easy. I'll speak to you next week. Thank you.